Whether you're looking to change jobs or you're job hunting for the first time, your resume is probably the first impression you're going to make with a prospective employer. CeCe Rogers caught up with some students at DePaul University who were getting their resume together with the help of a former recruiter.
Stacy Finley is gearing up to start interviewing for her first full-time job after college.
This suit is a very soft cotton, and so I thought that it would look nice.
Before she can land an interview, though, Finley has to have a good resume. She's working on one now.
I'm not really sure what needs to be in it, how much information, what type of information.
She's about to find out.
First, from the very top, you've got your address here, which is great, but you forgot to put your email address on.
These DePaul University students are getting the hard truth from Brad Karsh, a former campus recruiter for the Leo Burnett advertising agency.
It was not uncommon when I worked at Leo Burnett to get 500, 600, 700 resumes for one job. Now, because of that, we're going to spend about 15 seconds looking at your resume.
Among his do's and don'ts, Karsh says, focus on content. Don't use photos, distracting font styles, or different colors. Put the most relevant information to your job hunt first, not necessarily in chronological order. Don't just list jobs, say what you accomplished, using bullet points, action verbs, and numbers.
You want to infuse your resume with facts and figures and numbers. That's how it's going to stand out from a stack of 300, 400, 500 resumes of students applying for the same jobs that you are.
Karsh says resumes should be limited to one page for anyone with less than 5 years work experience. Listing a job objective is not always necessary, and the line, references available upon request, is a waste of space.
If what you've written can be written by the person who held the job before you or held the officer position before you, if they can write what you've written, rip your resume up and start over.
Stacy and other students said they're going to make changes.
Just kind of how I phrase things and my different abilities for having jobs and what I've learned with my experience.
In terms of like what I would change to it, probably experience, like how can I make my experience more like valuable, and just when recruiters look at it, they're going to say like, oh, she did a lot.
It would seem to go without saying, but Karsh says proofreading resumes would prevent simple mistakes and typos that result in about 15% of them being tossed into the trash heap. CeCe Rogers, CNN Financial News, Chicago.
Okay, the guy with all the tough love in the stories on the right side of your screen is Brad Karsh from Chicago. Brad is the president and founder of JobBound. He was a recruiter with Leo Burnett for the longest time. You're mean, Brad. That's all I got to say. Take the color out of the thing. Don't put a photo on there. Don't keep your resume long. But I thought the thing that stands out the most is that you said if someone else, either applying for the job or someone else who held the job, has a resume that looks like yours, throw your resume out. I thought that's what you want. Don't I want my resume to look like the outgoing person's resume?
In terms of what's written there. Right. Most people write job description resumes where they simply describe what anyone would do in that job as opposed to what they accomplished. So when someone's reading the resume, all they're reading is a job description, let's say for an account executive. And the recruiter at that ad agency, let's say, already knows that. So it's kind of a waste of time.
Give me an example of that. In other words, you're posting for a job at the ad agency. You were mentioning you would get hundreds of resumes at the same time, and I guess at a particular level, a particular salary level, or a particular career level, they're all going to look the same.
Yeah, where people will write things like worked on a day-to-day basis with clients helping them get their advertising out, managed several internal different departments to create creative briefs to ultimately produce the best ads. And while that stuff sounds good, technically, when you think about it from the perspective of the person who's reading it, they already know that. That's what any account executive has ever done in the history of the advertising field. They want to know specifics about what you did that no one else can necessarily claim.
And we've got an account executive's resume on the screen right now, and it looks very fancy to me. Account executive, at McDonald's, manage a variety of integrated marketing programs for client, author creative briefs that satisfy brands' business objectives, perpetuate cash flow profitability on all jobs by ensuring accurate and timely billing. Sounds like the person knew what they were doing in their job.
It does sound like it, but again, that literally describes every account executive in an advertising agency. So to a recruiter who's reading these over and over and over again, it's like explaining to me, for instance, what a waitress does or what a news anchor does. I already know that. I want to know what you specifically did.
And so you've actually taken that example that we've used, and you've talked about what you think it should look like. Let's have a look at this. The after of that resume listing, that job description that we just saw, looks like this now. Launched 1.5 million person direct, or I guess it ends 1,000, isn't it?
Million.
Oh, it's 1 million. And 1.5 million person direct mail piece, exceeding response rate by more than 20%, helped fundamentally reposition Big Mac sandwich, convincing client to change established 10-year target, created new internal budgeting process, helping keep more than $700,000 worth of production under budget. I get that now.
Exactly. So that literally, that was an actual resume. So that was the exact same person before and after. And once we talked about what that person did and found out specifically what they did, it turns it into a dramatically different resume, and it sends very specific signals to the person who's trying to hire this person.
Okay, so get the job description out of the way. If you're applying for a job where someone's going to know what you do, job description, they know. They're hiring you, they know what an account rep does. Let's talk, or an account manager does. You want to talk about what you did, your accomplishments. You want numbers, you want stats, you want figures, what do you want?
You want to infuse your resume with facts and figures and numbers. And whether that's, it falls into two camps, scope and results. So scope is how big was it? It was a 1.5 million direct mail piece. So that tells me, the recruiter, hey, you're able to handle big projects, all right? That's a significant project. And then you exceeded response rates by 20%. That's a result. That tells me that what you did wasn't just run-of-the-mill, wasn't just a standard program, but that you contributed to something that was extraordinarily successful.
Well, how do you tailor the resume to the job description? Do you do a different resume for every job? Do you do it for every genre of job?
You do it for every genre of job. So typically most jobs within the same field, so if you're staying in the same field, they're going to have similar job descriptions in terms of what they're looking for. So you can just write a version targeted to that. And what you literally do is look at the job description and take the skills they're looking for and match them up to what you've done. Now, hopefully you've done some of that stuff, but pulling those out, those buzzwords, those industry terms, recruiting directors are basically trying to make their life easy. They want to put a round peg into a round hole.
Right. So you need to look like the round peg.
Exactly. If there's less incentive for them to be taking chances with candidates. So they want to read, gosh, we're looking for someone with strong communication skills. When I look on this resume, the first thing I see is that this person presented in front of huge conferences throughout the course of a 5-year career, and they wrote 75 press releases picked up by major publications.
So without saying I have strong communication skills, I've provided evidence on my resume that I have strong communication skills. The tendency, however, Brad, is still to say, this is my most recent job because it's a reflection of the fact that all of my skills that I've developed through my career have lent themselves to me, in my case being a television anchor on CNNfn of this show. So it would stand to reason that I would list this up at the top and then jobs that led up to this below that. Is it the way you want to do things?
Well, I think there's a difference between college students and a difference between experienced professionals. So in college students, where you're looking at 4 years roughly, and the variety of work you do is amazing as a college student, right? Because some of them will be a waiter at Applebee's, and some will be interns at Goldman Sachs. So in that case, put the Goldman Sachs internship first, even if it wasn't the most recent thing that you did. For experienced professionals, you're right. If you did something 15 years ago, you don't want to put that on the top of your resume because it's not going to make sense when they see the date as 1991, for instance. You do probably want to put the most important information first. Put it in chronological order. Now, as an experienced professional, someone who's worked for maybe 5 years, you can have a summary of qualifications at the top of your resume that lays out the sum total of your experiences. That's critically important if you've done things in your past, maybe not toward the top of your resume, that are very, very relevant to what you want to do.
Aside from the job description, do the needs of the place to which you're applying for a job have a role in how you design your resume?
Yeah, exactly. The more you know about the company, what they're looking for, what their aspirations are, where they're trying to go, the more you can match that stuff up in your cover letter, in your resume, and ultimately in the interview, the better off you're going to be when it comes time for them to pick a candidate.
Brad, you're coming back later to talk to our viewers, to take emails and phone calls. Brad Karsh is the president and founder of JobBound.